Welcome to this week's Forex forecast for the week ending January 10th, 2025. So we've had some big moves here to start the new year, guys, and we're going to cover them all today in this video, including the DXY, the EURUSD, the pound, the dollar Swiss franc, and also the dollar CAD. Now, just to be clear, guys, I am making this video on Friday, so there are still a few hours left in the trading day. So just keep that in mind as we go through these charts. There will be situations where the market could close above or below key levels I'm talking about. Things can change. The market is dynamic and it's still open right now while I'm making this video. However, with that said, we look at the high time frames, and with regard to that, it really doesn't matter too much where we go here over the next few hours, because really the bottom line is that for the DXY, the case remains the same, that we've seen this uptrend here ever since the reclaim back here at 102.60. And the market did test a very critical level here this week at 109.50. And the reason for that is if we look here at the weekly chart, you can see where this is or was an imbalance that goes back here to late 2022. So notice back here, this low right here, we had this big red candle. And this is what I've talked about now for months. In fact, really the last year, I've talked about this area up here between 109 and 110. So we did see the DXY come into this area here this week. So this is significant. Don't downplay this. This right here, this low around 109.50 was a critical level, and the market came right into that this week. In fact, the high is right there at 109.53. So, for the DXY, guys, I do think, as I said in yesterday's video, that we could see a pullback here from this market, and so far that has been the case. Now, one thing that we're talking about in the VIP group, okay, which, by the way, guys, if you want to join us, you can get 85% off lifetime access. See the link in the description of this video, or if you're on the website, click on that Join a VIP link. So we talk about these markets in real time. You'll also get full access to the course in the Discord group. Now, looking here at the DXY here, you can see where we are getting an intraday breakout. We've been talking about this in the group. However, it is Friday. This is also an intraday chart. So, take this with a grain of salt. The market could break out like this and then just close right back within this and come down here and test this area. And this really is what I would love to see taken out. These lows back here right around 108.67, taken out here for the DXY before we get the move higher. However, considering how strong the US dollar has been, I'm not confident that we are going to get that before the market comes back here to attack 109.50. So, for the DXY, again, it is below a critical level here at 109.50. This is what we've talked about. However, at the same time, when you look at other markets, specifically the euro and even the dollar CAD, I do think that the US dollar could extend this rally a bit higher before we see it top out in Q1 of this year. And specifically, what I've mentioned here is the top of this channel. So, if you look here at these highs right back here, you can see we've also got lows right here off of this low. These are parallel levels. And even this low right here before the breakdown, this back here was the reclaim, guys. This is where I was getting bullish on the US dollar toward this level up here. We then got the break above that, the retest through here. So this has just been a series of higher highs and higher lows. And a lot of times when you do get a fake out like this down here below that 102.60 level, you do tend to get a retest of the opposite side of the pattern. And in this case, we're talking about this trend line up here off of these highs, which could come in at 110.50 or even 111 before we see the dollar top out. So, again, guys, I think that the market's below a critical level, but at the same time, I don't believe, or I'm not convinced, I should say, that the DXY is topped out just yet, because especially looking at the dollar CAD, which we'll talk about, later in this video, it does kind of look like the US dollar could gain some more ground here before we see a local top form. With that said, though, you have to be careful with the market below 109.50, just because, again, that is a critical level, and it will take at least a daily close above this to expose higher levels. But in that case, once you get up here, you've also got to be careful, because we're kind of running out of room here between this key level and the top of that channel, right? So you've got to be really careful here if you're trying to buy the US dollar on a breakout above 109.50, just because the top of that channel isn't too far away. And alternatively, like I said, if we do get the retest down here in this area, so looking at something like the 4-hour time frame, if we do get the retest down here in this area, I would be a buyer of the US dollar down here, simply because there is an imbalance right here based on this high. This right here, you saw no retrace into this breakout candle. So if we were to get a retest down here next week, I would absolutely be a buyer of the US dollar back toward 109.50 and potentially that area around 110.50. All right, so next up we have the euro here, which if we take a look at the weekly time frame, this is what we've talked about here for quite a long time. My end of year target for 2024 was 103.50. And the reason for that is this low all the way back here in 2016, 2017. And the reason I like that area is because following the break back above this, all right, so back through here, you can see where we got these equal lows that built up at 104.50. So as the market was coming down, it did look like we were going to get a full retest of 103.50. And as I've mentioned recently as well, I was looking for a break below 103.50 to start 2025, simply because if you look here at this price action, okay, so right back here off of 103.50. So we have these lows back here, and you can see we were getting those lower highs into that key level. So a lot of times when you see this, we've had a downtrend since October. We've had these lower highs into 103.50. Furthermore, we have some areas down here that are imbalances on the weekly and monthly time frame. So specifically, if we go to the monthly, I've talked about this in recent videos, but you can see that back here, okay, there are two targets, one that came into play this week so far. Okay, so this high right back here and also this one. Now, we also have parity just below those marks. Okay, but the reason this was a target is you can see here on the monthly time frame, we had this candle. This was a breakout candle that put the market back above 103.50. And the very next candle, we got no retrace into this one, okay? So there was an imbalance down here in this area, which often serve as magnets, and that's what we've seen here from the euro so far. So that's why I was targeting lower guys to start 2025, along with those lower highs into 103.50. So from here, okay, we are looking at a range-bound market between 103.50 and this area around 102. So really, I mean, just a range-bound market right now, very simple. It is going to be a little bit slow to start 2025. It typically is at the start of a new year. And so far, guys, it is unclear if we are going to get a full retest of 103.50 as new resistance. Now, just like with the DXY though, because this is essentially the inverse of that, there is an imbalance up here in this area. So this is our key level back here, very clear at 103.50. We then have this pocket of consolidation that occurred following the breakdown. Now, we didn't get a full retest of 103.50, so there is a pocket up here that could come into play as an imbalance next week. However, so far, and again, this is Friday, guys. It's intraday charts, so you've got to be careful here. But we are seeing a pretty decent sell-off here from the euro. So if this holds up and we see the market once again attack this area, I'm unsure if we're going to see the market get all the way up here again. With how strong the US dollar has been, guys, this is not something that you want to go against. You don't want to be going against the US dollar trend that we've seen since October, because so far there is no indication of a change in trend. Okay, so for the euro, one thing we've talked about in VIP as well, similar to the DXY, is you can see here on the, let's say, 15-minute time frame, if you go down here to the lows, you can see that off of these lows back here, you do have a channel that's developed here off of these highs and lows, right? And again, this is intraday, it's Friday, take it with a grain of salt, but you can see it's pretty well defined here, right, on something like the 15-minute chart. And so far, we are getting a breakdown here on Friday. So we'll see how this ends the week. As long as it's above, though, this area down here, really, again, guys, I mean, you've got to be really careful trading a 15-minute chart. It's not something I trade. I trade the daily, even weekly time frames. And so for right now, looking at the euro, really, it is just a range-bound market. It's as simple as that. This is our range. There's an imbalance up here in this area that could become a factor sometime next week. I would love to see a retest up here in this area before we get the reversal down here toward 102 again, and then potentially 1.009. And again, that's all based on those high time frame imbalances, right? When you look at the weekly time frame, especially the monthly, though, going all the way back here to this candle, even though we are seeing the market bounce here from this key area, which we, kind of expected considering the significance of this, right? I still think that we have this imbalance to deal with down here and potentially even parity before we get the euro bottoming out sometime in Q1 of this year. So next up, let's take a look here at the pound, which broke below a significant trend line going back to 2023. We've talked about this at length many, many times in these videos, and you can see where on something like the weekly time frame, we are getting that breakdown now from this trend line. So this right here alone, signals the potential drop towards some of these lower levels, like these lows down here, right around 1.2, maybe just above that mark, and potentially even this area back here, because note that there is an imbalance down here based on this high, this breakout candle. We didn't quite get a retrace into this. So right around 1.1645. Now, the question there is, can the pound get that low with where the DXY is sitting with regard to 110 to 111? And that's really the question I'm asking myself. I'm not sure it can. I mean, of course it can, but the question is it likely? And so far, I'm not quite convinced. But I do think that we could see the market come down here and test some of these lows if the DXY does give us that retest of 110 to 111. Now, looking at the price action here so far this week, we did get the break below a consolidation pattern that I talked about to VIP members here recently. So I'm going to remove this trend line just to clean it up a little bit and disregard this horizontal level because this is a high time frame level right here. But what you'll notice is that the market did form this consolidation pattern back here. Okay, so this is what we talked about in VIP, where I was mentioning how the market was forming this consolidation pattern that could signal a break lower. And sure enough, we got the breakdown here, the retest right here, and the rest, of course, is history. We saw the market come down here and tag 123.80, which was the first target following the move lower. Okay, now so far, we're just seeing a lot of sideways action here, which is to be expected. Again, guys, it is still early in the year, so we are likely to see markets kind of go sideways here and digest some of these moves that we've seen very early in the year. So no surprise we're seeing a bounce from this area. Furthermore, guys, this is also a critical area going back here. Okay, now you can see where this level extends off of these lows back here, this closing price, these lows, and also this area. Now it did drop below this, but recovered quickly, and that was the bottom here for the pound. So this entire area down here, right around 123.80, is going to be significant. So it is going to take a sustained break below this to open up lower levels like this little pivot through here, right around 122 and potentially 120.70. All right, so right now, guys, just some consolidation following the drop that we saw here early in 2025. So unclear if we do get a full retest up here or not. But again, really what it's going to come down to is the fact that the market is trading right here around this support area. So in my opinion, you don't want to be shorting through here. If anything, you're looking for a retest of some of these lows, potentially this consolidation back through here, right, before we get the drop lower, or you're waiting for that sustained break below here on the higher timeframes. So one pair that I talked about here recently was the dollar franc. And what we were watching here was the potential for a breakout from this trend line off of the closing price here on the weekly. And you can see that we did get a breakout back here in this area. And in fact, what you'll notice here is that if you move down to the daily time frame, what you'll see here is that we did get a breakout right here through this area. We even got a retest here on this candle, bullish pin bar. We got a 50% retrace into that, and then the move higher, right? So really nice setup here if you caught this. I know a lot of people in VIP did. But so far, guys, we are seeing it come into some of these range highs. So this kind of lines up with the DXY testing that critical level that we talked about, right? So you've got to be careful now if you are long this market. And in my opinion, this is really not where you want to be longing, just because if you'll notice, going back to May of 2023, this is where the dollar franc has held below, this entire time. Basically, this is one big range here for this market, right? So resistance up here in this area, we could see a wick above like it did back here, right? But this is ultimately going to be resistance here for this market. Now, one thing I think that could become really interesting later this year is if you move out here. First of all, those range lows, guys, going all the way back here to 2015, those range lows were incredibly significant, right? You've got this low down here. This was tested twice through this area. So these are the range lows, and then you've got your range highs up here. Now, what you'll immediately notice is that this right here is a 2-year range, a big range. But once you zoom out, you can see that this is really just a range within a much larger range. So I think what's going to be interesting later this year is, do we see the US dollar continue to move higher, right? Continue to strengthen, and pairs like the dollar franc break out from areas like this. Now, what it's going to take here, I want to be very clear about this, what it's going to take here is a weekly close, multiple weekly closes above this area, something it hasn't been able to do since all the way back here in early 2023. It's going to have to secure weekly closes above this to expose pivots like this back here, right around 94, and then potentially areas like this imbalance based on this candle back here, right around 97.80. So there are some targets to keep in mind here if the pair can start closing some weeks above this, right around 91.50. That's going to be the level to break here for the dollar franc. So that is going to be interesting, I think, in 2025. And it's too early to tell, guys. Right now, it is a range-bound market. Again, I don't think you want to be long in this market into a resistance area like this. But given the strength of the US dollar, I'm not going to rule out a potential break there, right? And something more significant here over the coming weeks and even months up there toward some of these targets. But until that time, it is a range-bound market, so we have to respect what is on the chart right now, not what we think might happen. All right, so with that in mind, guys, 91.50 is going to be resistance here for the dollar Swiss franc. But I did want to point this out just because, like I mentioned, we did have a buy down here that I talked about that played out nicely. We also had the break above this area through here for the run up there toward 91.50. All right, so now to wrap up, guys, with the dollar CAD, which we have talked about at length here on this channel and website. So the key for this market really is the fact that it's been moving within this range ever since 2015. Okay, and you can see that back here, it is coming off of those range lows. So really, I mean, we've seen this here for the past, really, 10 years from this market. So the fact that it was coming off of this low and forming this consolidation through here, this 2-year long consolidation that we talked about, once it got above 138.70 on the weekly, and we've talked about this many, many times, once it got above this, I was saying to expect an aggressive rally, potentially up here toward those decade-long range highs, right? So this area right up here around 1.467. And sure enough, that's pretty much what we've seen. I mean, the market broke out back here and it has been pretty aggressive ever since that time. Now, so far, if you look here at the, let's say, daily time frame, okay, this is, one idea I've had here recently, but again, I don't know if we'll get it just because of how strong the US dollar has been. Once I saw this range build up, I was kind of thinking, okay, we might sweep these lows and come down here and tag this level before reclaiming this range and then heading higher, right? But instead, the market so far, is holding above a trend line here, even on the 8-hour time frame. So if you look at something like the 8-hour, you can see where the market is so far holding above this trend line right here. Okay, so notice how no breakout through here, no breakout through here. We got the break and the retest. Now, the critical test, though, for this pair for buyers is going to be this level that it just tested, because this area right around 1.445 has been range resistance for this market. So if it can get up here on the high time frames, daily and weekly charts, then we could be looking at that last push up toward 146.70. Now, obviously, if it can't and it rotates lower and takes out some of these areas like this back here, then we could end up getting that full retest down here in this area before getting the move higher. But the trigger for that, if we get the move lower first to sweep some of these lows before the move higher, the trigger for that, guys, is going to be a retest down here followed by a reclaim of this range, okay? So unclear as of now if we'll see, the market take out these lows first before the move higher. So really it comes down to, can it get above here on the high time frames? If so, 146.70 is my target. If we get down here and it reclaims this range, then once again, 146.70 is my target. The only way that this market turns bearish is if we were to get a weekly close below 142.65. And the reason for that is, we've talked about this before, but you can see this consolidation from right back here. These are the range highs from back here, right around 142.65. So as long as the market is above this, I like it higher toward 146.70. Okay, but again, you've got to respect, I should say, the range resistance here that's built up on the daily chart, right? So the market's coming into that resistance area right there. So I would love to see the market come down here, sweep these lows, tag this area, and then move higher for that, final push into 146.70. But just to be clear before we wrap up, guys, it is not something I would short. I am only looking for longs here, okay? I want to be really clear about that. I am not shorting the US dollar. It has been way too strong since October. I am only looking for buys on this market. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell for notifications. Don't forget to join us in VIP. Claim your 85% off lifetime access. See the link in the description of this video, or if you're on the website, click on that Join VIP link. Enjoy your weekend, and I will talk to you again next week.